The morning rush had mostly passed. By 10:15 a.m., Sycamore Bank's downtown branch was quiet again. A few customers lingered at the counters, the soft murmur of low conversation mixing with the rhythmic beeps of card readers. Jordan Hayes stepped through the glass doors, letting the sunlight fall behind him as they closed. He was dressed plainly: dark jeans, a forest green sweatshirt, worn running shoes. A black messenger bag hung from his shoulder. He walked with a measured pace, scanning the room not out of nervousness, but habit. He stopped near the customer service desk, nodding politely at the receptionist. "Hi, I have an appointment. 10:15. My name is Jordan Hayes." The woman looked up, briefly startled, then typed something into her computer. She didn't respond right away. Her eyes flicked up and down, hesitating on his clothes. "And what's the appointment regarding?" "Business account. I scheduled it yesterday," he replied, calm, with a voice that didn't rush. A man 2 desks over leaned back in his chair, watching. His nameplate read G. Whitaker, assistant manager. His gaze narrowed, head tilting as if trying to match Jordan's voice to something familiar or foreign. The receptionist finally said, "Please have a seat. Someone will be with you shortly." She didn't offer a smile. Jordan sat near the window. The chair was stiff. He opened his bag slowly, removing a black folder embossed with a discreet silver logo. He didn't open it yet. He just waited. And across the room, 2 employees had already begun whispering. G. Whitaker stood slowly, straightening his tie as he walked toward the receptionist. He leaned in, pretending to scan her monitor. "That him?" he asked quietly. She nodded. "Jordan Hayes. Says he's here for a business account." Whitaker's eyes stayed on Jordan. "Doesn't look like any CEO I've ever seen." "Maybe a courier?" she whispered. Whitaker smirked. "I'll handle it." He crossed the lobby with a casual air, rehearsing the kind of polite authority that made people answer questions they shouldn't have to. He stopped a few feet from Jordan's seat, hands folded in front of him. "Mr. Hayes?" he asked, tilting his head slightly. Jordan looked up, calm. "Yes. I'm Greg Whitaker, assistant manager here. I understand you're here for a business account." Jordan nodded. "That's right. I was scheduled with a Ms. Patel." Whitaker didn't move. "Right? Well, before we bring anyone out, I just need a bit of clarification. What kind of business are you trying to open an account for?" Jordan opened his folder slowly, flipping it toward Whitaker without speaking. Inside was a cleanly printed summary: Hayes Urban Development, LLC, with registration documents, EIN, and letters from 3 investors. Whitaker took the folder but didn't read it right away. "And you're the owner of this development firm?" "I am." Whitaker's eyes narrowed slightly. "Interesting. Just asking because we get all kinds." Jordan's voice stayed even. "What kind is that?" Whitaker gave a tight smile. "Let's just say we've had some fraudulent activity in the past. We try to be extra careful." Jordan said nothing. Behind the reception desk, the woman picked up the phone and dialed an internal extension. Her voice was low but clear enough for Jordan to hear. "Can you come out? We might have a situation." Jordan folded his hands over the folder, still waiting. And Whitaker, still holding the papers he hadn't read, shifted his stance like he was preparing for a confrontation he assumed was coming. Minutes passed. Jordan didn't ask for updates. He didn't fidget or look at his phone. He just sat there, upright, eyes steady on the glass wall that separated the lobby from the offices. His folder remained on his lap, untouched. Across the room, Whitaker had retreated to the receptionist's desk, whispering again. "He's too calm," he said. "That's not normal." The receptionist glanced over. "You think it's fake?" Whitaker shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe he's trying to make it look real. Either way, we don't rush these things." Behind the glass wall, a door opened. A woman in a charcoal gray blazer stepped out, clipboard in hand. Her name tag read S. Patel, Business Accounts. She looked around, spotted Jordan, and walked over briskly. "Mr. Hayes," she said with a quick smile. He stood. "Yes. I'm so sorry for the delay. I wasn't told you'd arrived." Whitaker took a step forward. "I was just getting some background. Thought it best to." Ms. Patel didn't look at him. "We don't vet appointments in the lobby, Greg. Please don't do that." There was a pause. Not long, but enough to sting. "Right," Whitaker muttered, stepping back. Patel turned to Jordan. "Come with me, please." As they walked toward the office, Whitaker watched them go, face tight. The receptionist pretended to busy herself. Inside the glass room, Patel held the door open. Jordan stepped in. She closed it softly behind them. "I'm really sorry," she said once they were seated. "That shouldn't have happened." Jordan didn't respond right away. Then he said, "It's not the first time." And from the lobby, Whitaker's eyes stayed on the room, trying to read the conversation he was no longer part of. Inside Patel's office, sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting faint stripes across the desk. She offered Jordan a bottle of water, which he politely declined. Then she reached for his folder. "Let's take a look," she said, flipping it open. Her eyes scanned quickly: registration documents, funding letters, tax ID. Everything was clean, professionally prepared, thorough. "You've been busy," she said, looking up. "Hayes Urban Development. You're the primary owner." Jordan nodded. founder and managing partner. We specialize in sustainable housing projects. Our first Sacramento build broke ground last spring. She tapped one page with a short laugh. You've got better financials than some firms I've worked with for years. Why this branch? I grew up 10 blocks from here, Jordan said. My parents still live on Bayless. I want to keep the account local. Patel paused. Most people with your profile, your capital, your partners, they go to the central business branch. Higher tier service, bigger teams. I know, Jordan said simply. But those branches don't look like this neighborhood. They don't serve it either. She studied him for a moment longer, then smiled again. Well, I'm glad you came here. Behind the glass, Whitaker was still watching. The receptionist whispered something to him, but he didn't answer. Inside the office, Patel slid over a packet. Let's get this started. There's a few things to sign. The rest we can process today. Jordan took the pen, flipped open the packet. Outside, Whitaker turned and walked away, his face unreadable. He wouldn't be done yet. The first 3 pages went smoothly, signature, initials, signature again. Jordan's pen moved steadily without pause. Patel outlined each section clearly, her tone shifting into the kind of calm rhythm that came from experience. She'd helped dozens of business owners open accounts, but none of them had walked in wearing a sweatshirt and faced a front desk investigation before being allowed through the door. As Jordan reached page 4, a soft knock interrupted them. Patel looked up. Come in. Whitaker opened the door without waiting for a response. Sorry, he said, stepping halfway into the room. Didn't mean to intrude. Just thought I should check in. Patel's smile didn't reach her eyes. We're fine. Whitaker's eyes dropped to the desk. I just wanted to ask one more thing, Mr. Hayes. You said you had investors. Mind if we ask for verification? It's standard with new accounts of this size. Patel's expression hardened slightly. That's not standard. And I already verified the funding letters. Whitaker shrugged. I'm just being cautious. We've had incidents before, people using fake letters claiming non-existent partners. You understand. Jordan put the pen down. I do understand. But if this was standard, you'd have asked everyone the same. Whitaker hesitated, then forced a smile. We ask when things don't quite line up. Jordan leaned back. His voice stayed level. What didn't line up? The paperwork? My answers? Or the way I walked in? The question landed hard. Patel didn't move. Her silence spoke volumes. Whitaker didn't answer. He nodded stiffly, stepped back out, and closed the door behind him. Jordan looked at Patel. You said it shouldn't have happened. It won't again, she said quietly. Then they both turned back to the paperwork. The rest of the paperwork was routine. Patel explained terms, Jordan asked precise questions. No wasted words. But every few minutes, her eyes flicked to the glass. Whitaker was still out there. Not close, not hovering, but nearby enough to see them. Talking to a junior teller now, gesturing occasionally, his posture loose in a way that felt intentional. Like he wanted to look unbothered. Like he wasn't watching. But he was. Jordan caught her glance. He didn't react, just kept signing. After the final page, Patel collected the forms, stacked them neatly, and placed them into a manila folder. We'll need a few minutes to process this, she said. Shouldn't be long. Jordan stood. Take your time. As they walked toward the lobby, she added, I'll introduce you to the branch manager while you wait. He should know you by name. Jordan smiled faintly. Good. Let's make it official. They stepped through the glass door. Whitaker looked up instantly. Patel didn't pause. Greg, is Mark in? Whitaker nodded, face unreadable. His office is open. Jordan met Whitaker's eyes briefly, no smile, no malice. Just a glance. Then he turned and followed Patel down the hall. Whitaker stayed still, jaw set. Whatever he'd assumed before, that glance said it all, he knew now. And Jordan knew he knew. Mark Ellison, the branch manager, stood as they entered. Mid-50s, graying at the temples with the calm professionalism of someone who had survived more bank audits than he could count. Mr. Hayes, he said, extending a hand. I've heard your name before, glad to finally meet you. Jordan shook his hand. Likewise. Thanks for taking a minute. Patel stepped aside to let them speak privately. Mark gestured to a pair of chairs in front of his desk. Have a seat. Anita told me a bit about your project. You're developing over on Broadview. Jordan nodded. 12-unit build. Mixed income. 2 more lots already under contract. Mark gave a slow nod of approval. We could use more projects like that. The neighborhood's been starved for real investment, not just new walls, but a plan. That's the goal, Jordan said. Mark leaned back. Your documentation's clean. Patel's already moving it forward. But I want to make sure we keep this smooth. You'll need point of contact access as you grow, and I'd like that to be here. Jordan's reply was steady. That works for me. I value consistency. Mark hesitated just a beat, then added, and I'll speak with my team. About today. Jordan's expression didn't shift. That's your call. I understand. There was a knock at the door. Patel stepped in. Everything's been approved. The account's open and the wire verification came through. Mark stood. Then we're all set. Jordan stood too. Appreciate your time. Mark walked him back toward the lobby. Patel followed quietly. Whitaker wasn't at his desk anymore. Just a vacant chair, a blinking screen. The receptionist typed quickly, her eyes down. Jordan stopped just short of the exit. One last thing, he said, turning to Patel. Yes. That man, Whitaker. You said it won't happen again. She met his eyes. I meant it. He nodded once. Then we're good. And with that he stepped out into the sunlight. Back inside the bank, Patel returned to her desk and shut the door softly behind her. She didn't sit down right away. Instead, she looked through the glass at Whitaker's desk, still empty. She picked up the phone and dialed an internal extension. Mark? It's Anita. Do you have a minute? A pause. Then come in. She walked back to the manager's office with a steady stride, though the knot in her stomach hadn't loosened since Jordan left. Mark looked up as she entered. I was expecting this. She didn't waste time. I want to be clear. What happened in the lobby could have cost us more than just a client. Mark nodded slowly. I agree. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't pull rank. But if someone like Jordan Hayes walks out feeling disrespected, that's not a one-time issue. It means the culture's off. Mark leaned forward. And Greg. He made assumptions. You saw it. Based on how Mr. Hayes looked. That's not just poor judgment, it's dangerous. Mark sighed. You're not wrong. There was a long pause. Then what happens now, she asked. Mark didn't answer right away. He looked toward the hallway, then back at her. Let me talk to him first. And after that? He folded his hands. That depends on whether he knows what he did or if he thinks it wasn't a problem at all. She nodded once. He shouldn't be in front of clients until it's addressed. Mark's silence was agreement. Out in the hallway, Whitaker had returned, walking slowly, sipping from a paper cup like nothing had happened. He passed Jordan's empty seat, glanced at the door, then looked away. But things were already in motion. And this time someone was paying attention. Later that afternoon, Mark called Whitaker into his office. Close the door, he said quietly. Whitaker obeyed, a slight hesitation in his step. He sat down across from Mark, resting his cup on the edge of the desk. What's this about? Mark didn't answer immediately. He opened a file folder, then closed it again. You met a client this morning. Jordan Hayes. Whitaker gave a small shrug. Yeah. Patel took over. Everything sorted, right? That's not the issue. Whitaker leaned back. Okay. Mark's voice stayed level. Let's walk through what happened. From the moment he introduced himself, Whitaker's jaw tightened. I asked questions. He wasn't dressed like someone opening a high-value business account. We've been burned before. Mark's tone didn't rise. Burned by what? Sweatshirts. Whitaker looked away. You know what I meant. No, I want you to say it, Mark replied. What exactly made you think that man needed extra screening? Be specific. Whitaker fumbled. He didn't match the typical profile. That's all. That's not all, Mark said. And you know it. The silence was heavier now. Mark continued, quieter but firmer. You assumed something the second he walked in. You dismissed his name, his documents, everything. Then you questioned his investors after his appointment was already in process. Whitaker muttered, I was doing my job. No, Greg. You weren't. You were protecting your own perception of who belongs. And you did it in public, in front of staff and customers. There was no rebuttal. Mark let the silence stretch. Until further notice, you're off client-facing duties. You'll report to Patel for internal compliance reviews. If that doesn't work for you, let me know now. Whitaker looked stunned. You're demoting me? No, Mark replied. I'm giving you a chance to prove this was a mistake, not a mindset. And just like that, the meeting ended. Whitaker sat frozen a moment longer before standing up slowly. He left the office without a word. But something had shifted. Not just in the way others saw him. For the first time in years, he'd been told the truth. And this time, it didn't come with a smile. By the next morning, the story had already moved. Not the full version, no one mentioned names. But whispers had taken root. Something happened with a client yesterday. Patel stepped in. Greg's not taking appointments anymore. At the break room coffee station, two tellers spoke in low tones. I saw him talking to that guy. The one in the hoodie. Yeah? What did it look like? Didn't look like he was helping him. More like screening. Across the room, Patel sat at her desk, typing quickly. She hadn't said much to anyone, but people noticed how still she had been when Whitaker walked past that morning. No nod. No small talk. Just silence. Whitaker, meanwhile, moved through the building like furniture. Present but not engaged. When someone asked about a pending account, he replied, check with Patel. When a regular came in to ask about renewing a loan, he didn't even glance up. Can't help you right now. Behind closed doors, Mark was drafting a memo. Not for HR yet, but for the next team meeting. A reminder that perception isn't policy. That every door opened by judgment slams another shut. He hadn't told Jordan. Didn't plan to. There was no gesture to make, no apology that could reframe the first impression. But he knew this. The next time someone like Jordan walked in, there'd be a new kind of silence in the room. One that listened first. And asked better questions. 2 days later, a woman walked into Sycamore Bank just before noon. Late 20s, sharp black slacks, pale blue blouse, dark skin, and a low bun. She moved with quiet certainty, carrying a leather portfolio tucked under her arm. The receptionist looked up. "Can I help you?" "I have an appointment." Janine Rivers, 11:45. "Business account." "Of course," the receptionist said. No hesitation this time. "Have a seat, Ms. Patel will be with you shortly." Whitaker was nearby, pretending to review a printed report. His eyes lifted when she walked in. He watched her take a seat. He didn't speak. Patel emerged 2 minutes later. Smiling, composed. "Ms. Rivers? Thanks for waiting. Come on back." They walked past Whitaker's desk. Janine glanced at him briefly. He didn't return the look, just lowered his eyes and stepped aside. In Patel's office, the door closed quietly behind them. Janine arched an eyebrow. He didn't even say hello. Patel smiled faintly. "He's learning." Janine shook her head. "Hayes told me what happened. I figured he might. He said you handled it well." Patel nodded once. "It shouldn't have needed handling." Janine opened her portfolio and pulled out similar documents, clean, efficient, complete. "This is our second LLC," she said. "Same partners as Hayes. We want separate accounts but the same branch." Patel accepted the papers. "You're welcome here." Janine smiled. "He said you would be." Outside, Whitaker sat at his desk, no longer watching. Inside, Patel had already begun the next account. And this time, there were no interruptions. As Patel walked Janine through the account setup, there was a noticeable ease in the room. No questions that didn't belong. No sidelong glances at her clothes. Just business. Janine noticed it too. "You're good at this," she said, halfway through the paperwork. Patel gave a small shrug. "It's not hard to treat people right. You just have to want to." Janine nodded. Jordan said something similar. They worked through the forms quickly. Signatures, verifications, standard process. Outside the office, the bank moved in a low hum. But not everyone was busy. Whitaker sat alone, typing without focus. He hadn't been called into any meetings. Hadn't taken a client since the conversation with Mark. The lobby had become a place where he waited but didn't act. He could feel the shift around him. No one said anything out loud. No open criticism. But silence had changed color. It wasn't avoidance anymore, it was distance. He glanced toward Patel's office where the blinds were half closed. Another new client. Another person he hadn't spoken to. Another reminder. He turned back to his screen but didn't type. Just sat there. While the bank continued without him. That evening, long after most employees had gone home, Patel remained at her desk, finalizing end-of-day reports. The building was quieter now, just the hum of the air vents and the occasional creak of old floorboards. Outside her office, Whitaker stood in the empty lobby. He wasn't moving, just staring at the spot where Jordan had sat days earlier. After a moment, he walked slowly to Patel's door and knocked. She looked up. "Come in." He stepped inside, hesitated at the threshold. "Got a minute?" She closed her laptop without speaking. "I've been thinking," he began. "About how I handled that. The assumption I made." Patel didn't fill the silence for him. He shifted his weight. "I saw someone walk in and I decided he didn't belong. I didn't even try to hide it." Still no response. "I guess I wanted to say I see it now. I didn't before. Or maybe I didn't care enough to." Patel finally spoke. "It wasn't just what you said. It was how ready you were to believe your own story about him." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I know. Do you?" Whitaker met her gaze, and for the first time, his posture shifted, shoulders lower, not defeated, but quieted. "I'm not asking to be forgiven," he said. "I just don't want to be the guy who does that again." Patel studied him for a long second. Then she said, "That's not something you say. It's something you prove." He nodded again. "I get that." Then he turned and left, the door clicking shut behind him. Patel sat alone in her office, staring at the door. She didn't feel resolved. But maybe, just maybe, it was a start. The next week unfolded quietly, but not without notice. Janine's account was fully set up. Then another followed, an architecture consultant Jordan had recommended. Word was getting around. Clients arrived differently now. Not always in suits. Not always smiling. But always noticed. And no one second-guessed them. Not out loud. Whitaker still came in every morning, still took his seat near the front. But his role had shifted. He reviewed files, helped with logistics, took notes in meetings where he once led conversations. When a new client arrived one morning, a young man in paint-stained pants and a hoodie, Whitaker stood, instinct rising. Then he sat back down. Patel stepped in from her office, greeted the client warmly, and led him to a desk. Whitaker didn't move. Just watched. Not with the old scrutiny. With something quieter. More uncertain. Later that day, he walked past Patel's desk and paused. She looked up. "Just wanted you to know," he said, "I didn't step in." She raised an eyebrow. "I saw him and I didn't do what I would have done a month ago." Patel nodded. "That's something." He nodded too. And kept walking. Not out of pride. Out of practice. It was nearly closing time when Jordan returned. No appointment this time, just a quiet step through the doors and a short wait near the same seat from before. No folder in hand. Just presence. The receptionist smiled this time. Mr. Hayes, good to see you. Jordan nodded once. Here to make a deposit. Patel stepped out almost immediately, her face lighting up. We can take care of that. They spoke briefly, nothing formal. She took the check, entered a few details, and returned the receipt. That's from our second contract, he said. Lot on Juniper. I heard it's already framed, she replied. He nodded. From across the room, Whitaker looked up. Their eyes met briefly. Jordan didn't smile. He didn't nod. But he didn't look away either. Just met his eyes, long enough to hold him there, then turned back to Patel. Thanks for everything. You're always welcome here, she said. Jordan stepped out into the late light, the sun dipping low behind the buildings. Inside, the quiet settled in again. The receptionist resumed typing. Patel closed her drawer. And Whitaker sat still at his desk, the weight of the look Jordan left behind pressing into his silence. Not anger. Not judgment. Just a reminder. And sometimes that's what changes a place more than anything. Not what's said, but who was seen and who finally saw them.